Hello, hello, hello.
What the fuck?
That was a little fucking weird. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Hunter Tuned. I'm not dead. I'm still here. I just didn't make a video for a couple days. Sorry. But anyways, we are going to be putting together the bottom end for the new Mustang motor. I picked up this 2007 4.8 liter out of an express van. I tore it all down. I have all the rods and pistons out of it, the crankshaft. It's a bare block right now, guys. So this is the bare block. I just got back from the machine shop because I just kind of wanted him to, well, I took it to my old work and they have a hot tank, so I threw it in the hot tank for a little while to get all the old oil and sludge out of there. And this thing is definitely full of fucking metal shavings still from getting it decked. But anyways, it's nice and clean. Everything should be good to go there. But I did get the block decked. So the where the head bolts on is going to be a true surface. I'll flip it around quick for you guys and show you that. God damn, these fucking iron blocks are heavy, I tell you what. But anyways, so we got the surfaces on the deck of the block. I got those milled flat just to make sure, because when I got it, there was a bunch of junk all over it, and I just wanted to make sure we had a true surface on the block and the heads. I ended up getting the heads resurfaced as well, and we're going to be using ARP head studs. I'm doing this kind of like legit because I'm trying to take some of my Honda knowledge and put it into these LS motors. I've always just thrown them together, didn't measure fucking nothing. I'm still not going to measure nothing, but I just threw it together with, you know, what, how do I say this? I pretty much just took them from the junkyard, tore them apart, looked at everything, and then put them back together. That's pretty much what I've always done. And I check the ring gap and make sure the ring gap isn't like, you know, 5 thousandths or super tight or anything like that. But this time I just kind of wanted to make sure we have a good sealing head gasket, and I wanted to make sure that everything was kind of cleaned out, no sludge anywhere, to make sure that I'm not going to have any oil pressure issues, because one of my last motors had a little bit of low oil pressure. So we're going to be alleviating a lot of that stuff with some of the parts we're putting into this motor. But anyways, long story short, we got the block back, got the surfaces decked, and got the cylinders honed out just using a simple ball hone. So they look pretty good. It was got a little wet, just kind of sitting in the back of my truck, but they look really nice. I got the cylinders cleaned up. When I did have it sitting in the corner, they were kind of, you know, the cylinders were just kind of rusty and, you know, super dull, because when you leave them sit for a while, the cylinders will dull up and they'll kind of glaze over. So it'll be like the piston rings will have nothing to kind of bite down on. If the ring is just riding on ice, pretty much. That's kind of an easy way to explain it. But I did take one of the pistons so far and cleaned it up a little bit. So this is one of the pistons that I got cleaned off. So I just took it to a wire wheel and kind of cleaned them out as best as I could, and then took a pick inside of each ring groove to kind of break some of the sludge free. I got to get some brake cleaner and clean all the residue out of there, but I did clean them up a shitload, because I'll show you one that isn't cleaned off yet. So you can kind of see a side-by-side comparison here of not cleaned off, super sludgy, and cleaned off, not so sludgy. So what I did is I just took all the piston rings out. These rings are still good yet, in my opinion. They are not broken, and they're not completely sludged to shit. They still move freely, and I could pull all the rings out of the piston still. A lot of the times when the rings go bad or whatever, they get so sludged up and caked full of junk that they're stuck and they can't move anymore. So these are the rings off of the piston that I already cleaned off, and I kind of cleaned off the rings as well. Just took a rag to them with some brake cleaner and wiped off any of the residue on the rings. So that's what I'm going to repeat for pretty much every single piston. I may demonstrate on what we're doing to the pistons right away here quick, and kind of show you the process of what I do to clean them off and kind of just clean all the sludge out of it. Because the longer the piston has a bunch of sludge in there, the more prone to you know, rings sticking and binding to the piston, which isn't going to seal as good, and it's going to cause blow-by. Another thing that we got to do is polish this crankshaft. This crankshaft's been sitting in the side of my garage for quite a while now, and it's been seriously shit weather here for quite a while. It's been raining for like a week straight, and my garage door was open, and the moisture and shit kind of got in the garage and got some surface rust on the crankshaft. So what I'm going to end up doing on the crank is I'm just going to take some super fine Seinfeld. I'm going to take some super fine sandpaper, and I'm going to take sandpaper to each journal to kind of polish the journals, get some of the rust off of there. And then once the crank is polished, I'm going to clean it all out and blow air and brake cleaner through all the holes and all the orifices, make sure there's no junk buildup inside of there. And then I'm going to be throwing the rods and pistons and crank and everything into the block. I actually labeled each rod and piston out of what cylinder it came from, because a lot of times these crankshafts, I feel like guys have a lot better luck with stock bottom end stuff if they don't mismatch parts. So I think on my last motor, I actually kicked the rod, or one of the rods that I switched is the one that broke. So I'm thinking, because these from the factory, they run so goddamn long because they're balanced with the rod and piston, with the certain rod and piston in the certain hole kind of thing. So just gonna, make sure that, number 7 and number 8 are gonna be on this journal, make sure number frickin' 5 and 6 are here, and so on and so forth. And that's why I did label them when I pulled them out, so we can make sure that the balance of the engine still stays the same without having to, rebalance everything, which you should do if you put new parts in, you know what I mean? So we're not going to be putting no forged rods and pistons in, because there's guys going plenty fast with the stock parts. GM definitely did a good job doing these motors. But yeah, so I don't know where I'm fucking rambling to now, but we're also going to be reusing the piston rings and the bearings. Insert your hate comments down below. I love listening to your feedback, guys, and every input is greatly appreciated, but I'm still going to do whatever the fuck I want to do. But anyways, these bearings look brand freaking new, guys. They're just oily, from the motor being full of oil. But the bearings literally look brand new still with 400,000 miles on it, so I don't really want to tamper with them, and I don't really want to risk putting different bearings in and changing clearances and bearing freaking construction. I just gonna leave it. I'm just gonna send it, dude. Just gonna leave it. Same thing with the piston rings. Like I said, guys, rings usually don't go bad in my opinion, unless if they are completely broken or like sludged up to the piston to the point where they can't move anymore, or they can't like expand and contract kind of thing. A lot of people say that the ring has like an edge to it, and the edge wears off, and then once the edge is worn off, they're bad, and then it burns oil. I don't believe that in the slightest bit, personally. I thought I did, but I kind of going back to my roots again and just thinking, hey, as long as the ring is there and it can move freely, I think we'll be dialed. And if it burns oil, you guys will be the first to know. So, come down to wherever I'm racing. You can check out the car. Be like, Hunter, it's fucking smoking. You should have put different rings in it. We'll find out, but it's okay. This is my car, guys. I want to do what I want to do. What do you think, Christian? You think it'll be all right?
I think it'll be good.
I mean, for fuck's sake, I've put together probably 5 or 6 of these motors now, and I've never put rings in or bearings. I've never bought bearings or rings.
Reused freaking head gaskets,
stretched ass head bolts,
stretch bolts.
Yeah. So I think that the bolt surface thing is a big deal, just because with turbo and a lot of compression and boost into the cylinder, it's going to push up it's going to stretch the bolts a little bit, and it's going to push power pretty much right out of the cylinder and push it, into the cooling jacket or wherever, and then you push water. So that's one reason why I did do this, because I want to at least make horsepower and keep it in the cylinder. And if we have parts failures beyond that, oh well, that means we made some good jam. Okay guys, so I'm kind of going to demonstrate what I do to the pistons to clean them up. I'm just pulling the rings off right now, and to pull the piston rings off, you kind of just want to be very careful and find the edge of the piston ring and kind of take, what I do is I put like one finger on the back side and then my thumb on the front, and I pull on it a little bit and then kind of walk it up. So like just push the ring up like this and then slowly kind of walk it around just like so. You don't want to put too much pressure on the piston ring. You don't want to like pull it apart. a lot, because if you pull on it too hard, the ring will actually bust and it'll snap. So I got both the top and second rings off, and then the oil ring is going to have like a really thin ring on the top, which these ones are also really fragile, so you got to be careful. But I've done it enough to where I can do this pretty fast.
And they bend really easy.
Yeah, they bend really easy too, so you want to be careful not to bend them as well. So we're going to try to find the bottom oil ring now, the gap. So here's the gap for the bottom one. I'm going to walk that guy off of there. Make sure you don't bend them, or try not to at least. And then the last piece is the spring ring dude. That's what I call them. There's the spring ring dude. So now that all the rings are out of here, you can see that there's just a shitload of sludge and buildup all over this damn thing. So what I'm going to start by doing is just taking the whole piston to the wire wheel. And I'm going to pretty much walk, just going to dance the piston onto the wire wheel like this. Do the fucking Kiki challenge with the piston. And scrape all that shit off. And then I'm going to walk the wire wheel around this edge as well, where my finger is, and I'm going to bust all that sludge and carbon off of there as well. And then once all that's done, I'm going to take a pick and I'll show you that next. But we'll start by doing this guy. We're gonna need to get some brake cleaner. Gave it my all, boys. So we'll give this a wipe down. Look how nice and shiny. I'm gonna put a fucking Weisco sticker on it. Nobody will ever know. All right, so when I'm wire wheeling on the piston, I try not to go onto the piston skirt, because the piston skirt actually has a coating on it, and the wire wheel will take that coating right off. Even though this is an old engine and these pistons are old, it's already wearing on that coating from the factory, but I'm going to leave as much coating on that as possible. So I'm just going to try to not go on the wire wheel with that. But so now I just have this little pick dude. So I'm going to take this little pick dude, kind of go along in here, clean out all this frickin' sludge.
Like you're cleaning teeth.
Yeah, pretty much. They actually make a tool for this, if you didn't know. It's called a something, but it's a thing that you just put in here and it does exactly this does, but it does it more efficiently. But yeah, we'll just kind of go back and forth with the pick, clean out all the junk. You don't have to get it perfect, just kind of, I like to do this just because, like I said, it helps with the ring not sticking as easily. And it takes like fucking 2 seconds to do it, so not too big of a deal. But now there's a bunch of loose shit in here that we'll have to spray out with the air compressor. I got a blowgun, and we'll blow it, give it a blow job. Give it a blow job with some brake cleaner. Make sure you always get it wet when you do a blow job. So
That's horrible.
I'm just saying, nobody likes a dry blow job.
I think that's called a hand job.
Yeah, nobody likes those. Okay, so now that the piston and all the grooves are kind of cleaned out of sludge, all I do for the piston rings is I just take each individual ring, and I'm just going to kind of wipe them down. You can see this one is really sludgy, kind of full of junk, but just taking a rag and wiping it off is literally all you need to do to make it look brand new. Like I said, this is just kind of to prevent the rings from sticking. Just walk the rag around it like so. Wipe me down, mate. So there we go. That one looks fucking brand new. Dialed. These ones are a little tricky. Sometimes if I get really picky, I'll kind of just go in between each groove with the rag and wipe it out. But honestly, This one's just gonna get sent. Yeah, look at that fucker. That thing's nasty.
Oh yeah. Watch. Literally 2 seconds.
Yeah, just wipe it off.
Boom.
Brand new. Now, if you want to get really picky, fucking demonetized right here. Don't do this. Rusty? Not rusty.
Give it the fullest of sense.
This is how you go 8s, boys. The secrets of going 8s with a stock bottom end. I'm just kidding. Fucker probably won't even go 9s.
Huh. Putting together a 13-second LS.
Right. There we go. Brand new piston rings. $50. I should start charging for these and put them on my website. I sell reused junkyard fuel injectors. Why not sell reused Hunter-tuned piston rings? Look at that, fucking brand new rings. Should put them, instead of Hastings, we'll call them Huntings? I don't know.
Make sure.
$100 now! So the next thing, I'm gonna take the top and bottom rings, so second and first. First and second rings.
Yep.
The second ring is going to have this little dot on it, so we know that's the second one. So we'll check that one first. We're going to check the ring end gap real quick. So we're going to take the second ring, going to take the piston, put it in hole number 6. My Sharpie was green and my tape was black, so it's really hard to see it. But this is cylinder number 6 right here. So we'll put the piston ring into the hole like that. To use the piston to push it down a little ways. And we're going to measure the gap in between there. So I have a set of feeler gauges out. Where the fuck they went? So on the second ring, I'm going to try to see at least 25 thousandths. Because everybody says you're going to blow it up if you don't have a big ring gap. So look at that. From the factory, 400,000 miles, 25 thousandths fits. It's probably like a 26 or a 27.
Yeah.
Because this is pretty perfect. So I didn't get my rings, dude. Fuck. It's going to blow up. Alright, so now we'll take the first one and we'll check that. Put that in the hole.
Whole skew potato.
Push the piston through the thing. Push it down. And we'll try 25 thousandths on that one. Okay, she's a little... It's probably like a 22. That's what the other one is, a 22. Hola, look at that. Fucking mint. Dude, this motor was already set up for boost out of the box. So, fucking send it, dude.
So why did we take it apart?
I don't know. Should have left it. Alright, boys and girls. Ladies and gentlemen, dogs and cats, reptiles and lizards. That sounds so gay. What the fuck? Okay, so anyways, I got the block flipped over here. I got all the rods and pistons cleaned off. If you guys want to check them out here, they are looking, better than before. And I got all the rings. I checked all the ring gaps, and they're all literally 22 thousandths on the top ring and 26 to 27 on the second ring, and that's how they were when I pulled this thing apart. I didn't touch them, and that's actually a pretty good ring gap. Some people will go bigger, some people will go smaller, but my rule of thumb for any like turbo car is 20 to 25, on the first and second ring. So that's what I did. And we got the crankshaft polished up as good as we could. It actually looks really freaking slick now. We cleaned it off and took some sandpaper to it. We went to Walmart, picked up some 400 to 600 grit sandpaper, and I just kind of scuffed it up. So I took some sandpaper and I cut it the length of like the journal. So like that is the width of the main bearing journal right here. And I took the sandpaper, and like I said, this is like super fine grit sandpaper. It's not like I'm taking 60 grit to this fucking thing. But I took some sandpaper and just kind of took it. You can do this 2 different ways. I actually have another video on my channel of how to polish a crankshaft. And same concept with this one. I did a Honda crank before, and this one I'm doing on an LS. But pretty much, like I said, cut the width of the sandpaper, put it around the crank journal, And then you can actually wrap it completely around the crank journal and then take a shoestring and wrap the shoestring around it and kind of use the shoestring as like a, you know, a fucking Kiki challenge maneuver dance right here. And just kind of walk it back and forth. And you can walk the sandpaper back and forth to kind of scuff up any of the rust that was on the crank, or kind of just clean any burrs or clean any like imperfections that are on the crankshaft. So I did that on all the journals, and they look 1,500 times better just by scuffing it with some light sandpaper. With using like a 600 grit sandpaper, you're really not going to take off any material, or any material that's really going to, you know, make any big huge difference. But honestly, if we took off a fucking half a thou, that's probably better, because we're going to rev it high anyways. So it's going to be okay. I hope it's going to be okay. Whatever. But anyways, so I cleaned the crank, took some brake cleaner, sprayed it all down, wiped everything down with a microfiber. And then after that, we took the all the journals here on the crank. There's little oiling passages on each of the journals. And if you take a blowgun, like from an air compressor, this fucking guy right here, you take this guy and you shove it in the hole, and then you can feel like this will go all the way through this journal right here, and it'll actually come out of the main bearing journal right here. So this is like a cross feed system. So this main bearing will get fed from the block, and then it'll come through, oil the main journal here, and then it'll come through and do this rod journal right here. And then, you know, it'll cross through different spots, and they all have an entry and an exit point somewhere on the crankshaft. So when you spray through one end, it's going to come out of another. So if there's any shit or buildup, which this fucker had a lot. Yeah. We sprayed brake cleaner through it, and we sprayed the air gun, and chunks of shit came out. So we cleaned out all the orifices on the crankshaft. That's kind of key, because if you do get any of these oiling holes blocked from RTV or something like Michael did, it can actually starve the bearing of oil. So always a good idea to kind of spray through the crankshaft and just make sure all those oiling holes are clean and not, you know, full of shit. Because like I said, if they're full of shit, you're gonna lose pressure, and you're not gonna be able to get enough oil to a certain bearing at a certain point. And like I said, we're trying to make this thing have great oil pressure, and this is just another key point in making sure that everything is going to be happy and everything is going to work how it should. So clean crank equals a clean, I don't know, I was gonna say clean crank, clean life, but too far. Okay, so anyways, crank's done, rods, pistons done, all cleaned off, ready to go. So the next step is we actually took the block and I flipped it over, and like I said, we hot tanked this thing, but I also got it decked. So there was some metal shavings kind of floating around inside of here, but took the air gun, brake cleaner, a rag, wiped everything down as best as I could, sprayed everything down, and there's also more oiling orifices in the block. So under each main bearing, you're going to have another oiling hole right here that'll go through the block and exit out probably somewhere towards the cylinder head or out the oil pump or something like that. So another place to spray the air gun is going to be through these holes right here. Make sure all that shit's clean and clear. And I also spray through the bolt holes, because sometimes if there's shit in the threads, you can end up snapping a bolt off inside the block and snapping one off inside the head. And yeah, you can do all that stuff too. So all that's good to go. Got everything cleaned out completely. So the next step is going to be installing the bearings into the block. So I have all the bearings that came out of this thing over here. And this is the only part that I didn't label what bearing came out of what spot. But I think it'll be okay, honestly. These are all the same exact part number. So I'm pretty sure they're all the same size bearing. So we're just going to take each bearing, clean them off with this dirty ass rag right here. And clean off the backside as good as we can. You always want a clean backside, because, you know, if you don't have a clean backside, you know, you're probably not going to have a good time. You know, so yeah. Anyways, don't want to oil the backside of the bearing, because if you oil the backside of the bearing, it can spin. You want a friction fit into the block, so make sure both these surfaces are nice and clean. Metal to metal surface. Push the bearing in, and it'll kind of click into place. So there we go. One of the bearings is in, and you just kind of got to repeat this process for each individual bearing. When you put it in, just kind of wipe everything off. Make sure it's nice and dry. Give her a fucking push ski potato. Squeak, right there. And then the center main bearing right here
Ooh.
is going to, on an LS, this is actually really cool. It has the thrust washers for the crank play. So like when the crankshaft sits in here, the play that goes this way in and out, you need these thrust bearings to take up that slack. If you did not have these bearings in here, like on a Honda, if you don't put them in or whatever, the crank will actually walk back and forth and you'll destroy fucking everything. So an LS actually has the thrust washers built into the center main bearing. So this guy's just going to push right down in here, right there. And when I get the bearings in, I always make sure that they're flat on each side with my fingers. Just a good kind of rule of thumb. Make sure the bearing's not hanging off of one side or another. Doesn't really matter because when you bolt everything down, they're going to even out anyways. But just a good thing here to check, flat on both sides. And yeah, we'll get the rest of the bearings in and then move on to doing the piston. So today on Hunter's engine building, we put main caps on. We installed the main caps. Should I have just made a whole video on just doing this? A lot of YouTubers do it, dude. True. But I'm not that type of guy. You know what I mean?
Not that
I like
type
to
of
just
guy.
cram it all in one spot.
Ooh, fuck them.
So anyways, got the main caps and the crankshaft installed. The crankshaft goes in one way. Obviously the snout of the crankshaft where the flywheel bolts or the fucking flex plate, whatever you want.
The snout.
Yeah, whatever, dude. The fucking thing back here. This goes to the back where the grooved, grimy fucking sprockety thing goes to the front. You know what I mean? So put the crank in, and then got the crank in, make sure you lube all the bearings, the crank side, lube the crankshaft a little bit, lube it all up with oil, and then put your caps on. Now, one thing that is kind of confusing for some people on the LS engine is the main caps and how they go on, because some of them go this way, some of them go that way, the bearing tangs don't line up, and if you do like an engine build, for the most part, you want the bearing tangs, so like when I say a tang, there's like a little lock on the bearing that needs to face the other lock on the opposite side bearing. And on the LS, that's not a thing with the mains. You could just label them and take a picture or whatever before you take it apart, but if you don't know, the numbers are all on this side of the motor. So like if you
can see the 3 pretty good.
Yeah, there's a 3, there's a 2, there's a 4, and there's a 5 back here.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, you can't really see that one too good, but there's a 5 back on that side. So some of the numbers are on this side, some of the numbers are on this side. It's kind of confusing, but for the most part, there's a lot of pictures online that show you what way the caps need to face, but a good way to tell you guys is there's ears. So like these guys right here, ears are on the edge of the cap. So all the ears need to face the back of the engine towards the transmission. So there's ears going that way here, ears going that way here, all the way through number 4. And the only exception is number 5. Number 5, the ears face this way. So that's really kind of the way that you put the caps onto the block. But yeah, so anyways, got all that done, threw the bolts in, and this is another thing that people kind of get all fucking butthurt about, but these bolts are technically a torque to angle spec. So when you torque them first to like 18 foot-pounds, and then you go like 80 degrees or 60 degrees depending on the bolt. I just fucking torque them to 55. 55, 58, 55, 60, 58, 60, anywhere in there, you'll be dialed. Fucking mint, run it. So then you got bolts that come in the side here because the LS has a 6-bolt main instead of a 4-bolt main. This is 6-bolt main, so it's got 2 bolts that come through the outside of the block that go in. They're 10mm bolts. You just torque those to 18 foot-pounds and call it a day. They just add a little bit of rigidity to the cap. You know, it's a great design. So got the mains all put in, and this thing spins like butter. Always want to check after you install main caps to make sure that the engine still spins freely. Obviously, it's going to spin pretty free if the caps are on the right way and everything is happy. But if you do put a cap on the wrong way or whatever, this may not turn, or it may not turn easily. And if there's no connecting rods or pistons on it, it should spin very easily, which this one does.
Like with a hand.
Yeah, like I'm barely even. I'm literally barely putting effort into this, and it turns good. So this is a good setup. Next, we're going to move on to putting the rods and pistons in. So yeah, I have all those labeled. So we're going to flip this thing around. fucking cast blocks.
I just wanted to watch you.
All right. Okay, so when we're looking at the engine, the first one we're going to put in is going to be number 1. So number 1 is going to be, if you're looking at it from the front, the number 1 is going to be right here.
The first cylinder on
The right side is going to be number 1, yep. So we'll find where the number 1 is.
I just want to give a little shout out to Shades Wade real quick.
Yeah.
For sending me out a sticker. It's fucking awesome.
Hell
Thanks,
yeah.
man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Shades Wade. Okay, so I labeled all these number 1. So I can take the tape off of it now. Number 1.
That's going to throw the balance off.
Oh, when I go like this?
No, dude.
Taking the tape off?
Putting the tape on there.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so all these rings are nice and free. Got everything spinning good.
Oh, the tangs.
Yeah, the tangs. That's what I mean. There's 2 little locks on each side here. Make sure they face each other on the connecting rod. But you cannot put the caps on wrong. They literally won't bolt together because when GM did this from the factory, they cracked the cap. Mm-hmm. So it literally can only go on one way. But yeah. So we're going to get the piston ring compressor and we'll pick right back. Okay, guys. So we're moving on to putting the pistons into the block. I have all these labeled to what cylinder they came out of. I did talk about this already, but this is the number 8 cylinder. This is the last one that we have to do. I already did all the other 7 cylinders. We got the pistons installed, got them torqued down to the crank. So first order of business, because I'm going to rip this fucking tape off. Some dumbass taped them. Number 8. Okay, so anyways, when we put the pistons into the block here, we're going to want to make sure that the ring end gap, so the gap right here on the second ring, there's a gap right here. You want to make sure that that gap and the gap on the top ring are facing away from each other.
180 degrees off.
Yeah, I like to face them 180 degrees apart on pretty much any motor I build. That's a good rule of thumb. And then we're going to proceed to take the connecting rod cap off. So we're going to take these bolts out or loosen them up and then take the cap off of the connecting rod.
And that's what Hunter meant by they crack them from the factory. So I was really interested
Look
in
at
it.
this. Look at this. Okay, so like it's cracked sideways. So when you put it on like that, it's like crooked. Crooked. They crack them. Crack them from the factory. Yeah, cracked. She bitched. She's gonna blow up. Okay, so next thing is you want to make sure there's a little dot right here. You want to make sure that dot goes whatever way you fucking want because it doesn't matter. But technically from the book, it says that the dot should face forward. But with a flat top piston like this, it really doesn't matter all that much.
And why doesn't it matter?
Because the way that the valve, like if this had a dish on it or a dome, there would be valve reliefs in it. But the way that the cylinder head is set up on this thing, the valves can't actually hit the pistons. You know what I mean? So there's no valve relief in them. Or maybe they can hit the pistons, but if you have it set up normal and
Yeah.
can they hit the pistons? Are these an interference engine? Like if I had the timing chain on wrong, let me know in the comments. I'd like to know. So anyways, we got our fucking Vato Zone Harbor Freight T-Bag Specials fucking valve spring tool here.
Valve spring.
So we're gonna put that on there, and I'm gonna tighten this fucking thing down.
It's called a piston ring compressor.
Whatever, dude. I got valves on my mind, man. Must be the kratom fucking with me. I'm having kratom withdrawals right now, guys. I'm just kidding. I'm not. I'm not. It's okay. I'm not going to die from kratom.
He's addicted.
I'm so hooked, dude. I actually did take the day off today from kratom, if you guys give a shit. Because I wanted to see if I was, like, you know, dependent on it. And it's been a month since I started taking it every day. And I'm just fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not really, like, I'm not, like, fucking shaking, fucking falling on the ground. But it is a good idea to, like, take a break on that stuff once in a while. Because,
like a tolerance break almost.
Yeah. I'm not, like, taking a lot either. I only take, like, a gram a day. Nothing crazy. And it's not like pot. If I smoked a gram of pot a day, it'd probably be a lot. Or would it be? No, probably not.
For some people.
I mean, I don't fucking know.
Hypothetically speaking.
Right. But anyways, Kratom's fucking awesome, guys. I love it. Christian tried it today.
For the second time.
Yeah.
Because the first time didn't go, so it didn't do what it was supposed to because I took too much.
Yeah, you took too much.
Yeah.
See, the thing is with Kratom is the less you take, the better the feeling you have. Seriously, like.
Oh yeah.
If you take too much of it, then you feel like you're all fucking strung out on Percocet or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you're on a painkiller, and that's kind of what it does. If you take a higher dose, but if you take like a super small dose, like 1 gram, it just kind of makes your day better, and fucking you have worry-free fucking day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is great for somebody like me that has fucking anxiety and bullshit.
Because what did I take? It was...
You took a super white vein Kratom, because I got a sample pack from this fucking place. He took a super white 1 gram, and it worked pretty good. It's like fucking better than coffee.
Yeah, no, it was definitely like one of the better days I've had in the past like month.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's awesome, but you can't get hooked on feeling like that all the time because, you know, taking anything every day is probably not good for you. But whatever. Okay, I'm going to quit fucking bitching about Kratom. Let's put this piston in the hole. So anyways, I put this fucking ring compressor. You know what's funny is I haven't made a video and I've been taking Kratom every day and be like, oh my God. Never mind. I'm not going to put that in there and then put that in there. Okay, so anyways, we got the ring compressor tightened down onto the piston and then put into the hole here. And then I'm just going to give her a little... This thing doesn't really sit level because it's kind of a pile of shit.
Just a little tap.
Yeah, a little tap, tap, tap. But then we're going to take the back side of the hammer here, give her a little fucking, a little bit of, and then a little bit of. We're going to hit the crank on the back side here.
No, sir.
Okay, I'm going to keep shoving. See, she got hung up on a ring. Give her a fucking tap. Give her another tap. And there she is, right in the fucking hole.
Boom.
Okay, so now we're going to walk over to the back side of this fucking thing. And we're going to grab the connecting rod and push the piston down so the rod sits on top of the crank like this. This is how I like to do it at least. And I'm just going to make sure all the surfaces are clean. Which, that was a great fucking indicator of they're clean, huh? So we're going to take some fucking assembly lube. So we're going to take some lube here. We're going to put her on the bearing like so, you know, fucking give her.
Don't worry, it's not that Lucas Oil zinc shit. It's just
no, it's just Walmart 2050 oil. I just like the bottle. It makes me look professional. So anyways, we got the bearing lubed up. We're going to take this and fucking jizz it onto the crank. And then we're going to push the rod back. So push it back up the hole. And then line it up with the fucking rest of this shit. Push it down. Move this rod over because both rods for each side of the motor have to sit on the same journal. And we'll just slide it right next to it so they cuddle. And then we'll take the cap. So this is the cap. Make sure this bearing's nice and clean. And then we're going to fucking jizz on this one. Give her a little fucking 1-2. And then we're going to take this and we're going to line up the numbers. So the numbers right here and the numbers right here line up. Also the bearing tang goes to the bearing tang on the rod. Otherwise the crack matches the crack. You know what I mean? Like crack to crack. Crack to crack. So we're going to fucking just give her the old send with the bolts here. We're going to send the bolts right into the hole. Crack to crack. Bolt to hole. Thread to bolt. Bolt through the hole. And then fucking, hey, how you doing?
Just do a little, hey, how you doing?
Yep. And then we'll fucking grab the old ratchet potato here. And we'll crank her up. Oh yeah, so we can get at that fucking bolt down there. This bolt down here. Fucking give her the old 1-2. Thread her down in there with my hands, my fingers.
And then they're torqued.
And that's all you do. That's how you build the motor. Fuck it. Don't need to torque it. Don't need to do nothing. So I set this thing at like 42, 45 foot-pounds. And we'll give her a little like, okay, it's a little snug. You know, you're supposed to do this in steps.
Yeah.
I do 2 steps, so like snug and then torque. So that one's snug, that one's snug. Now we'll torque. And when I say snug, I mean like snug and a bump. You know what I mean? So we'll go down. Yep, that's about 60-degree angle. Yep, that's about 90-degree angle. She's fucking mint. Dialed in. Anyways, literally, guys, 42, 45 foot-pounds on the rod bolts. fucking ship it.
Yeah.
Good to go. These things are all torqued to angle, like 10 foot-pounds, and then 90 degrees. So you'd be like, "Brah," and then go like, "Brah," and then we're done. You know what I mean? So yeah, there we go. She's fucking done potato. All these are fucking torqued.
Yeah, they're all TIT type.
Yeah, fucking torquey, borky, porky, torqued. Done. Fucking shit.